Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Ontario knife company Shikra. First off, though, I want to thank my buddy Josiah. He messaged me one day by email, said, "Hey Nick, I got a knife you should check out. You haven't had it on any channel yet, but I think it's something you should definitely take a look at." And he wanted to donate one my way. I very much appreciate that, Josiah. That's a kind thing of you. And as always, I told him to talk about the good, the great, bad, the ugly. Might be a gem, might be, but nonetheless, he sent it along. So that's where this guy comes from. Thank you very much for that. Next thing, let's do some size comparison. Here it is against the Ontario, same company, rat number 2. And so you can see here the blade length is a little bit longer, and in fact the knife is a little bit bigger in and of itself. Here it is against the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. There you go. And here it is against the Spyderco Delica. So we can get a chance of that. Actually, real quick, let me grab the Ontario rat number 2, or number 1 that is, so you can get a sense of it there, because that's going to be another one of the competitors sort of in this range. So there's your size comparison. Next thing, there was no disassembly of this pocket knife. The reason for that is that this is a free spinning pivot and it was Loctited shut, so I was unable to do any disassembly for it. I tried a couple of tricks, just didn't happen, so there you go. And then finally, this knife has actually been featured on the channel before in my How Do I Examine a Brand New Knife video, where I kind of gave my initial impressions and thoughts on this guy first out of the box and talked a little bit about how I'm looking at something that comes across my table, so you can check that out if you're interested. But anyways, let's go on ahead and talk about the good, the great, the bad, the ugly of this very interesting little knife right here. Good side. Clip on this guy is tip up or tip down, but right side only. You can have the clip here, you can have the clip here. Either way, carries fine. I don't particularly love the fact that there's a hole left over here, rather than this being, a set of flush-fitting screws or something like that. But you know what? Hey, I guess it works. Not a big deal. Whatever. Next thing, size-wise, this is right in the middle of the road. We are coming in here at, in terms of blade length, just a little bit over 3 inches. Not quite 3.25, but it's in there. This is a very good middle-of-the-road sort of size. That is enough knife for pretty much most tasks in most people's daily lives, but not so much that it's out of hand, so that's good. The design on this guy is pretty good as well. It's a little middle of the road, right? A lot of knives look just like this guy, but at the same time, it's fine. It works well. That's good. The blade grind on this guy. The blade itself is a big old chunk of Aus 8 steel. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but at the same time, the grind on it comes down to a relatively thin edge. The tip on it is relatively thin. It is a nice cutting tool in that way, and so the fact that they've put a nice thin grind on this guy and they're not using super thick blade stock is great, and it follows up Ontario's tradition of using some pretty good blade stocks, blade stock thickness and blade grinds, which I do very much appreciate. Next thing on this guy, and actually last thing on the good side, is the action on it. It is a very, very strong detent, actually borderline a little too strong. It has a very strong detent, but that means that it deploys reliably 100% of the time. There's no problem. You don't need any wrist or anything like that. And it runs pretty smoothly on the close as well. Kind of drop it shut if you need to. So the action on this is very good. And so to me, all of that is the good, is that it's got an excellent action, a nice blade grind, a nice design, nice size, and a clip that can go tip up or tip down if you need to. On the great side, the thing that kind of makes this guy unique is this side of it right here. This is a titanium frame lock. And it is, more importantly, a titanium frame lock that is $45. And that makes this probably the cheapest titanium frame lock around from a company with reliable distributorship here in the U.S. Absolutely. There's a pretty good chance that there are other companies who are drop shipping directly or selling on, but if you want a company that is likely to be carried perhaps by a local knife shop, or that's going to have a return a service center, this is probably one of the cheapest titanium frame locks you can get. There may be other ones out there. Let me know in the comments, but a lot of the other ones out there tend to be dice roll brands. They tend to be Chinese companies that are, shipping direct from, and that can come with its own problems. So, to me at least, what's great here is that you are getting probably the cheapest titanium frame lock with an actual retailer and support network available here in the U.S., and that can be a great thing, and it's pretty reasonably well done here. So, to me, that's what's great. On the bad side, to start with, the screws on this guy are sticking up inside the deep carry clip. You can see they're sticking up there, as opposed to on, for instance, this guy is the Wee Knives Banter, where they are flush fit on the inside there. Not a big deal, but it's a thing. Next thing, the micarta on this guy is not great. It's micarta, certainly, but it's got a very fuzzy feeling to it. It's kind of, it ends up feeling a little bit like, okay. It'll probably end up looking better as you wear it more, as you wear it, as you carry it more, as you use it more. It'll end up looking a little bit better, but I'm not a huge fan of this micarta. There are definitely classier micartas out there in the world. So there is that. Next thing, the detent on this guy, like I said, is a little too strong, especially with this relatively hooky flipper tab, which, by the way, is pocket pecking a little bit. This is going to be pecking on whatever's in your pocket all day long. It is definitely a very strong detent, and as a result, if you have any pressure at all on the lock bar, this guy ain't coming open. So the detent on this guy is maybe more than it needs to be. I get that they're trying to make that work, and honestly, although I think it is on bearings, yeah, it's on bearings, but still, and it could be that if I was able to get up in there and clean things out, that could be improved, but I wasn't, so that's a thing. And so the detent is a little too strong, and this hooky flipper tab makes that even more uncomfortable than usual. Then finally, on the bad side, the steel on this guy is, as they are advertising there, OS 8. This is a steel that is okay. Given the fact that they're making a $45 titanium frame lock, I'm not going to drag them too hard for it, but honestly, okay is a pretty charitable thing to say about OS 8. It's a steel that works. You gotta love sharpening, but it'll work. So OS 8 is a steel, and it's not like a terrible steel, but it's also not a very good one either. So you really have to be getting good value, and although I think you are, that's definitely a downside of this guy. So to me at least, that's the bad. Is that it's in OS 8, the detent is overly strong, the micarta just isn't that good, and the screws are inside the deep carry clip. On the ugly front, this is a thread-locked shut knife with a free spinning pivot. Oof. Not going to be a good thing. I mean, I can demonstrate this for you right quick. All I mean by that is that this side of this pivot is not tooled at all, and when you spin the knife, the backside spins. Not great. Not a big fan of that at all. And as a result, although you probably could free that up using, for instance, some heat if you needed to, or it just, dude, come on. Free spinning pivots are a bad game anyways, but when you thread lock them too, yeesh. So I'm not a big fan of that guy. So that, to me, is what's ugly here. Final conclusion, this is a reasonably fine knife. I know, high praise, right? But it is. I mean, at some level, it's nicely sized, nice enough design, nice grind, good action, and a price that puts this at the very, very bottom of the titanium frame lock piles for folks here in the States wanting to buy from reasonably well-known distributors, right? It's got weird micarta, it's got an overly strong detent, steel that is just not that great, and no disassembly, but it will do the job. Practically, though, I think that this knife is sort of a price gimmick. I don't know that that's a term, but I'm going to make it one. Because the fact is, if you want a titanium frame lock, you can find better titanium frame locks. This is not the best one of those out there, but you're going to pay a lot more money for it, right? Similarly, if you don't need a titanium frame lock, you can absolutely get a little bit more knife for that price. Put simply, rat number 2, right here, damn near the same blade length and such, but a slightly nicer blade. I like the Rat 2 more in, I think, pretty much every meaningful way. Honestly, that $35 to $45 range is full of options these days. You will get better tools out of the Rat 1 or Rat 2 and D2. You'll get better flippers out of similar options from like Rake, the Ruwaiki, whatever, from these folks, or especially if you're willing to go steel frame locks, or other kinds of things, Real Steel, Civivi. There were lots of other things out there. The thing that makes this knife unique is it's a very inexpensive titanium frame lock. And by the way, that does make it relatively lightweight. I probably should have thrown that out there already, but we are coming in here at about 2.38 ounces for 3, a little bit more than 3, so it's under an ounce an inch. I should have mentioned that as well. But so it's a relatively lightweight piece, and it's a titanium frame lock, cheaper than you can generally get one of those. And so that's great. But that's kind of the thing that it's got going for it, right? At the end of the day, the reason you would buy this knife over any of the other hundreds of knives that are now available in that 35 to 45 range is if you want a titanium frame lock from a company with some reputation, right? That's why you would pick this knife up. And so ultimately, I think that you can get a lot of really great knives, including from Ontario, that maybe exceed this guy in a couple of meaningful ways if you're not interested in that. But if you are somebody who wants to try a titanium flipper frame lock, and you won't be content until you have, and your budget prevents you from going a little bit higher up the range and getting some nicer features and such like that, then honestly, I think picking this little guy up here wouldn't be too much of a Shikra deal. Okay. Anyways, there you go. I hope this was interesting to you and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.